Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for another segment of the Jain Irrigation Training Series. I'm Richard Rastusha, Vice President of Water Management Solutions for Jain Irrigation. And today we're going to be talking about something that I think is really important for our industry, and that is Spanish language terms for water management. Now, a few sessions ago, we had some people on talking about how can you benefit your career? How can you move forward in the landscaping industry in a good way? And remember Stacy Sternot from Landscapes USA, she mentioned one of the things was to learn Spanish, right? A lot of our crews speak Spanish, only really understand Spanish. And we have to communicate, right? Communication is key with our teams, and learning to communicate in their language is even better. And then I thought about this. It was interesting. Many years ago when I first got in the business, Bob Kingston from All Around Irrigation and Carpinteria, he said, "You're doing a training today." And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Oh, take Jaime with you, And I said, "Why do I need Jaime? I'm the guy with the master's degree." And he said, "Jaime speaks Spanish and he knows all the terms, irrigation terms in Spanish as well." And that's really clicked for me early on. And I would really appreciated Jaime's help and also Bob's suggestion, because even if you know Spanish, you may not know the irrigation terms in Spanish, right? A midline may not be a word you even know, for example. So today we've got a couple of experts, both in irrigation and both in Spanish, that we're going to be talking with. And the first is Dave Laybourn. And Dave's been with ET Water now for, a little over half a year. But Dave's got a real history in irrigation. Just prior to joining Jain, he was with Olson, and he goes back about 20 years in irrigation, but more importantly, has a real handle on sustainability and working in irrigation with a conservation mind up front. So it's great that we've got Dave. And talking to Dave, I was like, "How did you learn your Spanish?" And come to find out, he lived in a Spanish-speaking country from when he was about 4 to 8 years old. So he learned it early, and we know that's when it really sticks. Also today with us is we have Danny Martinez, who's the Technical Sales and Training Manager for ET Water. Now, Danny is one of these guys that if you know him, you know the value of his irrigation knowledge. You know how helpful he can be. And if you don't, you're going to find out he's really one of the gems of our industry, working particularly in Southern California. Danny has worked as a contractor. He works for ET Water now, and he's also been involved in a lot of training. He's provided a lot of training for a third-party service as well. So we're really fortunate to have Danny and Dave to take us through this. So Dave and Danny, welcome. And what do you have in store for us today?
Yeah, hello, hi everybody. Thank you, Richard. Pleasure to be here again today. And Danny, thank you too for collaborating with getting this going. First thing we're going to do is introduce ourselves a little bit, and we're going to speak Spanish and English both. Most of the words on the screen are in both Spanish and English, or in English. So if there are English speakers in the audience only, don't worry, you can read on the screen what we're saying. And if there are Spanish speakers in the audience only, we'll be speaking your language. So first up is just a little more introduction from each of us. Danny first.
Yeah, thank you, Dave. Buenos días, gracias a todos por acompañarnos ahora. Yo soy Daniel Martínez con ET Water. Yo tengo 17 años en nuestro negocio aquí de irrigación. Trabajé 13 años en una distribuidor de partes de irrigación aquí en el sur de California. También trabajé independientemente como un contratista haciendo mayoreo de reparaciones, y también 4 años dando clases como un instructor con una compañía que es socio de ET Water. Y llevo 4 años con ET Water. Empecé haciendo las ventas de reloj. Ahora, como dijo Ricardo, hago los entrenamientos y mucho de los servicios aquí en el sur de California.
Y buenas tardes todos. Me llamo David Laybourn. Yo tengo ya 7 años en riego y también 13 años en el riego de agricultura. También 16 años. Yo soy un poco más viejo que Daniel, pero tengo 16 años en la empresa de salvar la energía. Y salvar la energía y salvar el agua hay muchas cosas que son similares. Como dijo Richard, yo vivía en Bogotá, Colombia, entre los años 4 a 8 y allá aprendí el español y también aprendí el español en la escuela y pasé unos 4 o 5 meses en Madrid. Pero eso fue más o menos hace 40 años. Pero todavía hablo español más o menos en el negocio porque trabajo por el riego, agricultura y en la landscape. Y vamos hoy a charlar un poco, hablar un poco por algunas cosas, algunas palabras que son muy importantes en nuestro negocio de riego y también hablamos por unas cosas, unas palabras en el negocio de manejar el agua. Bueno, primero, hay muchas opciones cuando quiere decir una palabra. Por ejemplo, point of connection. Danny, por favor, hablamos un poco por las palabras de punta de conexión, point of connection, y por qué son diferentes.
Sí, hay varios modos de decir el punto de conexión de agua para un sistema de riego. Y lo que yo he encontrado en mis 13 a 17 años de experiencia, que hay varios términos y puedes diferenciar por local. Yo aquí en el sur de California, point of connection se dice punto de conexión, sería el traducción por palabra, pero también muchos jardineros le hablan o le dicen al medidor como el punto de conexión, que sería el medidor del agua que está por la ciudad. Pero también aquí en esta área Sur California, muchos de los técnicos o jardineros reconocen que un aparato que detiene el agua, que tiene llave de paso, se llama un backflow en inglés, es lo que ellos usan por el punto de conexión.
So for those of you listening and don't speak Spanish, and so in English, what we're talking about is there are just, it's almost local lore and local habit what things are called. And so a point of connection can be literally a punta de conexión, a point of connection. El medidor is the meter. And so that could be what people refer to. And el backflow is, of course, the backflow valve. There really isn't a Spanish word that we know of for backflow. But when it comes to Spanish words that we know of, may we invite the people listening in, if you have some words that are in Spanish for these terms and words that we're using here in English, please type them in on the comments and we'll collect them all and we can talk over different ways that people have learned to say these things over time. So the next one up is the site inspection. And Danny, you can help us with what some of the history is around site inspection.
Yeah, definitely. When we're talking smart irrigation controllers and water management, we need to know what's out there. Cuando estamos hablando de un sistema de riego inteligente, como lo que vamos a hablar, es importante inspeccionar o revisar el tipo de planta, el sistema de riego. Y hay varios modos de mencionar eso. Un modo es inspección de riego. So inspección de riego, just direct translation, irrigation inspection. Y unas cosas que hace durante una inspección es buscar fugas, a ver si hay agua tirándose, si hay rotores o válvulas o tubería que está tirando agua.
So buscar fugas, for those of you watching in English, look for leaks. Look for leaks. And of course, that's what goes on often in a site inspection. And then finally, the last point on here, find a valve, busca la válvula. Buscar is the verb to find. And so once you know the noun that you're looking for, then you can just say busca, busca this, busca that. And we have some of those nouns here coming up on the next page.
I just want to ask a quick question here to Danny. Danny, you're out in the field a lot, working side by side with a lot of these crews. For the Spanish-speaking crews, do they know most of this terminology, or are you having to explain it to them as well? Does that become part of the training process for you?
Yeah, I mean, being down here in Southern California, I grew up, born and raised out here. And then a lot of technicians or workers that I see out in the field that are managing these systems, there is a language barrier. And like we've mentioned a couple times, there's no direct translation to a lot of these words. And so you get a mixture of Spanglish out here, where you're going to say some words and half your sentence in English, and then you use a noun or subject that's in Spanish.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was funny. We just got somebody who wrote in, could we create a vocab list that could be shared after the presentation? That's just what I was thinking, that we should do this, right? Because this is part of the real value. So anyway, thank you, Danny.
I think that's a great idea. Muy buena idea. Thank you. So here's just a little vocabulary, general Spanish terms. Controller is controlador. And then, a lot of people in English, when they talk about an irrigation controller, they're talking about a timer or a clock. And the word for clock or watch in Spanish is reloj. So controller, controladora. Wire is alhambra. That's the real way to say wire, the actual real translation. But often it's called cable, spelled like cable, but it's a cable. It is a cable, but it's often used for wire. Pipe is tuberia, but polyethylene hose, línea de goteo, manguera negra. Now this is an interesting situation. Línea de goteo, manguera negra. Polyethylene hose with no drippers is often black color. It's often brown when it has the inline drippers in it, as we all know. But often just poly hose that you put out and then you poke the drippers on there is black. Manguera negra means black hose. And so rather than calling it tubing without emitters or just hose with no emitters, it's often referred to as just the color because it typically is the color.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite ones, Dave, because even for English, right? This is basically blank tubing. It is a hose, and we can call it polyethylene hose in English. We can call it blank tubing. We call it supply line tubing. All these different words. It's hard, right? You guys are doing a great job on this.
Manguera negra. Well, the mother of invention is whatever it is I'm trying to say here. Necessity. And if you can't think of it, you just describe it, right? So manguera negra is blank hose. So rotors often go by rotores. There's probably other words for rotors, and I think it'd be nice to put them into our glossary. A spray head is rociador is the real way to say it. The perfect translation. Aspersor is often used for spray. And so here is drip line next, which is línea de goteo o manguera café. So línea de goteo literally means drip line or line with drippers in it. And manguera café is brown colored tubing. And brown colored tubing is often the one with the drippers in it for landscape. And so therefore it's the one that is drip line, with emitters. Subsurface, you say the word superficie. So línea en superficie gets you to subsurface. An emitter is a gotero. A valve is a válvula. And so here we will bring up some of the things that now we're going to create some phrases. So if you know these phrases, and then if you know the noun that is involved here in the phrase, well, then you can actually start issuing instructions to the crew. So I need you to, necesito que usted, and then you could tráeme la válvula, tráeme el cable. I need you to bring me the, necesito que usted tráeme or me trae, and then you add the noun on to the end. And Danny, you can walk us through the next ones on this list here. It'd be good. Thank you.
Yeah, so like Dave said, you can use these to start off your sentence and your commands or request to a technician or somebody out in the field. And like he said, necesito que usted means I need you to. You could add buscar fugas. We covered that a second ago. We need to look for leaks. Necesito que usted busque fugas. Necesito que usted me tráeme la válvula. I need you to bring me the valve. Turn on and turn off. Something's very used quite a bit when you're doing a wet check. So prende la válvula, turn the valve on, right? We got to turn on the water to do our inspection. Decimos prende la válvula para activar una válvula para mirar la agua y chequear para fugas. Turn off, apague la válvula, turn the valve off. So just simple terms that you can use for irrigation. And then Dave's favorite, let's take a break. Vamos a tomar un descanso.
Very nice. Now, do you guys have the chat open? There's a gentleman saying that in Baja, where he is, they've got a special name for nozzles. And so I was wondering what your name for nozzles were, and is it the same as what he's saying?
Yes, absolutely. Boquilla is definitely the main term used. And going back to our Spanglish, a lot of people in Southern California would say nozzle. So it's not really a word in Spanish, and it's not in English. So it just that's kind of what nozzle sounds to a Spanish speaker, un nozzle. Clearly not the correct term for it, but I hear it a lot out here, especially when I used to work in irrigation. Customers customers would come in, ask for nozzles. Necesito nozzles para mis sprinkles. I need nozzles for my sprinklers. But yes,
it's really cool to see how we work the communication out, right? We all figure it out as a way to communicate. It's great.
So boquilla would be what I would hear in agriculture a lot. And boquilla literally means a little mouth, because a boca is a mouth. And so that, sometimes the word is more of a description. So let's see here. Richard, what just happened is I'm not advancing. There we go. Now I am. This is the page that in preparing for this presentation, Danny and I had a lot of conversation, because now we're going to be talking about the terms to use with water management and ET water and control to follow the weather. And these are interesting words, because over the years we've learned how to say them in English in sort of a shorthand. And we tried to put Spanish words on here. This is where, again, the audience, if they have history with this, could really help us out. But the water management, literally, administración del agua. Administración, administrator, somebody who takes over, somebody who looks after. And so that is the term that we decided is the best way to describe water management, administración del agua. Now, the next one on the right here, trigger point, is an interesting one. We use the analogy of turning on the water when the soil moisture gets to a certain place. Punto de iniciar riego. Well, that literally means it's the time when, or the place in the control logic when the irrigation comes on. But of course, it has much less meaning than the word trigger point to us who work in water management, because there really isn't any discussion about the moisture in the soil. There isn't with trigger point either, but it's kind of implied because over the years we've talked about it this way and used these terms. So I'm interested to create new language for water management in Spanish that has meaning in Spanish for people, like it does for those of us in English who've been at this for quite a while.
Yeah, absolutely. For trigger point, I mean, trigger translate as disparador. So if you're thinking of a gun, your trigger is what that really means. But do we want to really mean you're triggering like shooting a gun? Maybe that's not the right way to explain it for irrigation. So we're going with the point of watering. That's when the controller, a smart controller, is going to say, hey, we're at a level where we need to irrigate.
Well, thanks, Danny. Carry us through some more here on this page, and then we'll move to application with water management with RET water.
Yeah, absolutely. So application rate is kind of difficult to translate directly to Spanish also. Again, your application rate is the volume or the speed, the volume that you're putting down the water. And when it comes to your smart controller programming, we need to know how fast the station's putting down the water and the volume. So we're doing medida de aplicación, the measurement or the rate of application. The next one would be uniformity. In Spanish, if you try to translate it, uniformidad kind of just means evenly. So for this here, for smart controller programming, we want to see how even your irrigation's watering. So we switch that to translate to aplicación o qué tan parejo tira el agua la sistema. Very important for smart irrigation programming, because each individual station may have a slightly different rate how they put down the water, and your system would need to know that. Water bucket or your reservoir, for smart controllers, we're trying to figure out how to translate that. So in English, we know our water window is our water bucket as how much water the soil can hold. So cantidad de agua en la tierra means the amount of water in your soil. Okay, so we can do that in measurements, which would be inches. And then water window. Water window just refers to what time of day or night you're going to schedule your watering. La horas cuando puede regar o la horas de regar. What hours can you water? Dave, I'm going to hand off the tricky one to you to ET.
Yeah. No, you're right. Evapotranspiration, you can just take this word and you can change TION to CION, because that's how you would spell it in Spanish. And if you look it up in a dictionary, that's what you get. Pero evapotración es el agua que necesitan las plantas, normalmente pulgadas por día o pulgadas por semana, inches per day or inches per week. A pulgada is an inch. So it's the water that the plants need, often measured in inches per day, inches per week. We don't really know of a good Spanish way to say that, unless somebody knows evapotranspiration. I don't think the letters ET are used in Spanish, so there's that. And a plant coefficient, that's an interesting one too, because plant coefficient es una coeficiente de la planta. Y es importante porque hay plantas que necesitan mucha agua y las que no son resistentes a la sequía y no necesitan mucha. Y por eso el ET es diferente, depende la planta. What I just said is it's the plant coefficient. There are plants that need a lot of water. They're thirsty plants, and there are plants that are very drought resistant and don't need much. And you have to know the plant coefficient to properly put down the right amount of water to match ET for the particular plant. And again, something else that needs to be across in Spanish. Useful rainfall, lluvia que se puede usar, lluvia que entra a la tierra. Useful rainfall, we don't, in Spanish, they don't say useful necessarily. They say rain that can be used. or rain that can actually enter the soil, que entra a la tierra. We don't even know a real good way to say smart controller except to just talk about a controlador inteligente, intelligent controller. And then fixed daily irrigation schedule is something that you would often see in a normal standard controller. Programación fija, fixed. Fija is fixed and diario is daily. Programación fija diario would be a standard way that somebody would be putting water on a landscape. This would be how you would say that in Spanish.
So Dave, I want to just interrupt 1 second. We've got a few people asking, is there a vocabulary list to be available? And we actually are going to develop that, and we will email it out to everybody who attended today. That's for sure. For those of you who've been on these Lunch and Learns before, you'll get a recording of this whole program. But I wanted to ask you guys, particularly for Southern California contractors, would you guys be available for live training or Zoom training? Is that something you would do if someone asked?
Yes, absolutely. Danny does live training all the time in the field, and Zoom training is maybe even easier and meet a lot more people without having to move around so much. Yes, we can do that.
Okay, great. I just wanted to let people know, that is available too.
Yeah, our phone numbers are on the first slide and on the last slide. We'll leave up the last slide for a bit at the end. So I'm going to turn this over to Danny now. The explanation of what he's going to say in general is in English on the screen for the people who are watching this and don't speak Spanish. But in Spanish, Danny's going to explain the nature or the concept of smart irrigation and how it follows the weather to space out the irrigation events.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just switch over to Spanish here. La sistema Jain es un sistema de riego inteligente que usa el pronóstico y información de la clima para ajustar las programaciones de la programación de los válvulas, los tiempos. Entonces, ¿qué es ET y cómo lo utilizamos? ET es la calculación de dos diferentes términos. Uno que es evaporación. Entonces, con evaporación estamos calculando cuánta agua se está vaporizando por la clima. Si está más caliente, la evaporación va a estar más alta. Como está apuntando ahí en la pantalla, este sería el 19 de agosto. El ET está 1.4 pulgadas. Está más seco ese día, está más caliente, se está vaporizando más la agua. Y si se fijan en sábado, el 8 de agosto 22, el ET, la evaporación es 0.7 más o menos pulgadas. Y con eso es suficiente información para que podamos notar a alguien que no esté entrenado en un sistema que puede saber, ok, no necesitamos tanta agua todos los días, no necesitamos que aplicar la misma cantidad de agua todos los días. Jain Unity utiliza, por ejemplo, 17 diferentes factores para calcular ET. Por ejemplo, la intensidad del sol, la temperatura, el viento, cuánta sombra hay. Y usamos las redes nacionales de meteorología y imágenes de satélite para programar nuestro sistema. Y todo esto usamos unos servidores que pueden programar miles de relojes al mismo tiempo. Y con eso, esa información, estamos, ¿cómo se dice?
Ajustando.
Estamos ajustando el sistema cada hora con millones de datos, millones de puntos de información para que siempre esté al más preciso el sistema de irrigación. Por ejemplo, aquí en la pantalla, si baja ET, no es necesario regar todos los días. Este sistema regó martes y miércoles, y como bajó ET, esperamos 3-4 días para volver a regar. Y esto es lo que hace un sistema como de Jain Unity, ajustamos el schedule diariamente. Si no ocupa agua un día, puede atrasar el riego otro día.
Y aquí está la cantidad de agua en la tierra, el bucket. Aquí está el bucket y cómo baja el bucket hasta ese punto de trigger, el trigger point. Necesitamos poner agua otra vez hasta llevar la cantidad de agua en la tierra y baja por el ET hasta otro episodio de riego. Y aquí hablamos un poco por cómo hacemos corrección por la lluvia. Daniel.
Sí, una diferencia de Jain Unity comparado a nuestros computadores es que nosotros miramos el pronóstico por la lluvia. Así que tenemos la capacidad de beneficiar de esa lluvia. Nosotros podemos atrasar el riego de una estación o de todas las estaciones para asegurar que si hay lluvia lo podemos capturar en la tierra y si utiliza mejor por la planta. Es mucho más mejor usar el pronóstico en comparación de un sensor meteorológico que está fijo en un local, porque ese sensor fijo no puede mirar en el futuro si va a llover mañana o 3 días en adelante o la próxima semana. El sistema de Jain Unity sí puede hacer eso. Como dijimos, siempre se está programando y agarrando más y más información del pronóstico. Así que como un sensor que está fijo, no sabe que va a llover mañana por casualidad. Y si rega ahora, ya la tierra está a su capacidad de agua. Toda la lluvia se va a correr por la tierra. Los desagües, el cemento. Pero el sistema de Jain Unity, si sabemos que en 3-4 días adelante va a llover y podemos aguantar 4 días sin regar, el sistema atrasa la regación para capturar esa lluvia.
That was a terrific explanation. What Danny was talking about is how Jain Unity in particular is looking ahead 7 days, always looking ahead 7 days to a rainfall forecast and an ET forecast down to about a 1 kilometer accuracy range around where the controller really is. And in this example, the ET is falling and there's rain forecast for Sunday, the 11th of November. And this is actual data from a site of ours in Fresno, California. And you can see how on the lower half of the screen, the forecast added water to the water bucket or the reservoir and bumped up a little bit the water in there, and which of course pushed off reaching the trigger again further into the future. Now, maybe there'll be rain again after the 12th of November, and that may push it off again. And of course, all this is terrific as far as saving water, because if an irrigation system were to irrigate because it doesn't know rain is coming, it would fill up the soil with purchased water and the free rainfall would come and wouldn't have nowhere to go and wouldn't be free. So that was generally what Danny was explaining just then in Spanish. But you can see how there's a lot to learn, and the whole idea of evapotranspiration and plant coefficient, of water bucket, of reservoir, trigger point, these are all terms that need to be translated over and well understood. And again, my big takeaway is there's a lot of education to be done in Spanish on these subjects in order to really use ET to its furthest potential.
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. One of the things we come across in what I do, especially with the training and teaching Spanish speakers how to use a smart system like this, is especially down here in Southern California, I would say around 80-90% of the users who are actually using the system out in the field day to day are Spanish speakers. So having a system like this, our Jain Unity Mobile in Spanish, the customers can click on there, know what they're doing. They understand the language, all the terms that are in the system, and it makes it a lot easier for them to do their job and also have better results. So they can maximize a system like ours to get the maximum savings, whether it's water or ultimately dollars and end users or owners' pockets.
So you
This-
guys, what's the difference between Jain Unity Mobile and Jain Unity? When would you use one? When would you use the other?
You can use both. Jain Unity is your principal dashboard where you're going to go there and do most of your controller programming. It's just easier to see on a computer screen or tablet. But both platforms work well on smart controllers, smartphones, or your computer. But the mobile app is generally going to be used by your field tech, your water manager out in the field who's turning stations on, looking for leaks, needs to activate the stations, needs to know the controller's status, and needs to make schedule adjustments.
Y aquí tenemos algunos usos de Jain Unity, el mobile app, Jain Unity, y hay algunas páginas que ya están traducidos a español. And Danny, if you could walk us through these next few pages here of what can be found already with Jain Unity in Spanish on the app.
Yes, absolutely. Sí, aquí es la pantalla del mobile, la aplicación para un celular inteligente como un iPhone o un Android teléfono que tiene pantalla que puede utilizar estas imágenes. Unas cosas que le enseña aquí en la primera página es que le enseña la última día de regación. Necesitamos saber cuándo fue el último que regó un reloj para hacer la inspección. Y también te avisa la próxima fecha que va a regar el reloj. Como dijimos antes, un reloj inteligente va a atrasar los días o cambian los días, no son fijos los días que rega, siempre está cambiando con la clima. Y así, con esta información, sabe usted cuándo va a regar próximamente. Estado de controlador inteligente es muy importante porque puedes seleccionar allí y te enseña cuándo fue la última vez que conectó el reloj con nuestros servidores y cuándo va a ser la próxima conexión. También te dice la fuerza de la comunicación. Si nosotros operamos con celular en el reloj y necesitamos saber si el señal está fuerte o necesitamos que cambiar antenas o levantar antenas para tener buena comunicación. También tiene la opción de zonas marcadas. Un manager o todos los managers, todos los manejadores que están en un sitio pueden poner notas para revisar o inspecciones que necesitan otros usadores mirar. También le damos las alertas. El sistema de Jain Unity te da alertas si hay un sensor de flujo, te puede decir si hay una fuga, si se pegó una válvula, si está tirando agua o si no abrió un agua, si está atorada una válvula que no está regando. También te significa si hay cortes en los alambres. El sistema hace diagnósticos del reloj, todo el cable a la válvula, al solenoid y el cable de regreso al reloj. Siempre te lo revisa cada vez que activa una estación. También con esta aplicación riego manual, puede iniciar las válvulas hasta 8 a la vez para hacer sus inspecciones o si necesita algo que necesita un poquito más agua, puede poner que riegue unos 5 o 10 minutos hasta 1 hora. Y también puede ajustar la programación de la aplicación móvil.
Y ahora vamos a hablar un poco de ajustar. Aquí está, se puede ajustar la zona.
Sí, el reloj se puede reprogramar, por ejemplo, si cambian de césped a nopales o árboles o plantas, pueden solamente escoger el tipo de planta con la imagen ahí y si cambia de un rociador o un rotor a sistema de gotero, también les puede escoger ahí y en esta página puede ajustar cuánta sombra le cae en cada estación. Next one, Dave, please. Y esto es cómo se ajusta un reloj inteligente. El sistema siempre está ajustando con la clima, pero usted nomás tiene que ajustar estos dos puntos para ajustar la programación. En primero, la frecuencia. Si usted ve que, el zacate o el tipo de planta no puede aguantar, que decir, 4 días entre riego, puede subirle a esta raya de arriba a 200% y el sistema automáticamente te va a regar más enseguida. O duración, los minutos que rega el sistema, si ves que otra vez hay sequía, puede nomás ajustarle, subirle por un 10%, y ese 10% se va a ajustar también con la clima. También ahí en rojo ve que está circulado ayuda. Puedes coger ahí y abrir el programa de chat. Puedes mandar textos con unas de los ayudantes en nuestras oficinas y le podemos ayudar en español también por text. Si necesita ayuda a cómo programar algo, si se le olvidó cómo hacer ajustes, puedes coger ahí y puede hablar con alguien en nuestras oficinas para ayudarle.
So those of us watching in English and don't have the Spanish, what we're discussing here is ways of adjusting the ET water situation in the field using Jain Unity on our smart controller, on our smartphone. And so these are the different plant types, and these are the different irrigation methods. And this is shade, whether there's shade or whether there's sun on the zone. And then here is adjusting the frequency and the duration. The frequency has to do with how empty is the water bucket before a trigger is hit. If you let the water bucket go pretty empty, then the frequency will be quite a long duration between irrigations. If you want the water bucket to remain pretty full, you can choose that and you'll have a pretty quick turnaround between irrigations. Duration has to do with how much water is put on the landscape relative to ET. And so if you want to, for whatever reason, feel like you need to put more water, you can raise the duration and you will raise the amount of water put on the zone. Or the other way around, if you feel like the weather or the plant material is a type that can handle less water, even than ET says it can, you can adjust that for yourself. And then here is the help. And ayuda means help in Spanish. And we have Spanish-speaking staff on our helpline, and we also have Spanish-speaking chat for text for questions. So that is what we wanted to talk about. Eso es que queremos hablar en español y también en inglés. Tenemos algunos minutos para preguntas. So Richard, if you have an agenda for the rest of our time, and I think the idea of holding on to a glossary and getting it out there is just terrific. I really support that.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you to both of you. What a great job, right? So not only did you cover basic irrigation terms and components of an irrigation system, but what an extra bonus it was to learn about the ET Water smart controllers and how to explain in Spanish how to do that. I sincerely hope that everybody watching will take these guys up on their offer to help train. I know both of them for a long time. I know they're both committed to training and they do a great job. Hopefully you'll take advantage of that. To all our viewers, thank you for watching today. I know this is a big chunk of time and a very busy time of the year. So I really appreciate your attention and participating with us today. Remember, all our trainings are on the jainsusa.com website. Just search irrigation training on there and you'll find them all. We're also on Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts as well. And we'll be back this Friday. Corey Broad's going to be talking about pistachios and how to irrigate and how to maximize yields with pistachios. So we're looking forward to that. Again, Danny and Dave, thanks very much. Great job today. And we will see all of you very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Richard, for the opportunity. Goodbye. Adios todos.